I'm Steve Saporn, and this is the Neuro's Journey podcast. My guest today, Omani Carson, built a $40 billion business. And from the outside, it looked like the dream life. He had the planes, the boat, the beautiful family, but on the inside, he was fearful and felt like a fraud. Like a lot of men, he thought success would heal the pain. If he just built enough, earned enough, achieved enough, the emptiness would go away. It didn't. But Omani had the courage to turn toward his pain. Through psychedelics, deep reflection, and real work, he rewired his operating system from fear and scarcity to love and abundance. And that's when everything changed. Purpose emerged, and he really started to thrive. His company exploded in size, his relationships got stronger, and he's having a lot more fun. He is out to change the world, and he's been doing it with me personally. This conversation is real, inspiring, and packed with wisdom you can use to change your life. I started the Neuro's Journey because I lived that same disconnect. I was sexually abused as a child. I witnessed a mass murder. I grew up in domestic violence. And for most of my life, I thought I was broken, damaged. But I wasn't. I was injured. And injuries can heal. So if you're carrying a burden, if you still feel like you're performing strength while feeling scared inside, I know that feeling. And this episode might help you find your way.
All right. It is my great honor and privilege to interview Omani Carson. And before we get into his life story and all the things that he's done, I just would like to reflect how you've impacted me. It's, I would call you a very good encourager. You know, you encourage me to be a better man. You encourage me to love better. You encourage me to treat people better. You encourage me to think of myself as powerful and good in the world. And you do it with some words, but mostly how you do it is by the way you are. I get to observe the way that you're being. And I was trying to call in some mentorship into my life this year, and here you are. And so I feel really honored and blessed to just that you would take this time for me, to support me and to support people healing. It means a lot to me.
Oh. Steve, I just want to reflect for a moment back to you. We're here because you and I met in Costa Rica at the Lionheart Summit, which we shared a marathon day of Wachuma, like 14 hours in the jungle, And we at the end of the day, and there was I think it was 40 or 50 people there. I was mentally, physically, emotionally like exhausted, and I'm sitting there just being, I'm an introvert is my default, like just to be, and I'm overhearing you have a conversation with another person, and it was just engaging. Like you resonate love, connection, authenticity, and invited me to come over and join your conversation. And it was one of the highlights of my trip, just sitting and we related on, we both come from financial services, and we've had major metamorphosis really experience in our lives. And so just back at you, I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and that's a good segue. So Omani started life as Ron.
Yes.
And Ron Carson started the Carson Group, which is, as I know it, a $40 billion asset management firm, among other things.
Yeah.
And but now you're Omani. So I'm interested in that progression. And maybe we could start with, what was it like to be little Ron growing up in his world? And really, like, what messages did you get? And what did you learn about the world based on your circumstances that informed how you were for most of your life, 50 of years?
Yeah. Well, I turned 61 here in August.
Wow.
So in the 60s. And, what's funny about growing up, I think this probably is true for most people, when you're in it, you really don't know what the rest of the world is like. And so you think that's just a normal part of growing up. And my sister, who I'm very close with. I have one younger sister who you met. We
Rhonda,
spent
yeah.
some
I
time
mean,
over the
yeah.
last few days. And um, our life was uh, full of chaos and trauma and abuse and alcoholism and I look, Ron and I still talk about this to this day. I really feel fortunate to just be alive. Um, my my parents and we're coming from a place literally a mile from where our home farm is. I grew up on a farm, um, and Jeannie, we'll get to her in a minute. She grew up on a farm close to here as well, in Decatur. And but both my parents came from places where they were super poor. My dad always liked to say, "We were so poor, the poor even thought we were poor." And my grandmother, the home place is just like a mile from here, because I was born in Ohio. And when I would come out and spend the summers with my grandparents, and they lived in this house with no air conditioning, no running water. I remember as a kid having to go out to the odd house in the middle of the night with spiders and, everything else. But again, it was this, uh, that's the way they lived. I looked at this really small, literally surface area, smaller than like the barn loft that we're in here at the Carson Healing Ranch, and 5 kids. And, I think that I share this context because and my mother grew up in Ohio. She was born in Kentucky. And they had absolutely nothing. I mean, nothing. And my dad grew up in a family of abuse. I adored my grandparents, my grandmother and my grandfather. And my grandfather died when I was 10. And I only knew him as this amazing man. And when my grandmother was actually dying, I said, "Well, you get to go be with Grandpa." And she's like, "Yeah, I kind of hope that's not the case." I'm like, "Huh?"
Wow.
Yeah, it was a wow moment for me. You remember these moments as a kid, and I mean, I was in my 30s, right? And I'm like, wow. And as I dug into that a little deeper, I share this because you know the Ron life and the Omani life were completely two different lives. And I think my grandfather had the same thing. He was was here grinding, trying to make a living, support his family, and was willing and probably to do anything in order to survive. It was pure survival mode. And that was then transferred to my father. And, I've really tried to dig in with my father and my mother both to understand where they came from, because those are ingredients that have made my sister and I. My father, talked about the abuse that he experienced as a kid. And I remember him saying that his father used to beat him with a tire iron. And, and he said finally he got big enough and strong enough that he went to hit him with it. And my dad grabbed it. And then he tried to hit him with his other arm. He grabbed it and he's looking at it. My grandfather just got red as could be. And he said, "You're never going to hit me again." And that was that from my father. But then that's the kind of abuse that he knew. And so I remember just, we were abused. I was abused. My mother was abused physically. And I remember staying up at night, so worried that my dad was going to hit my mom. Was wanted to protect her, and hurt people, and I don't think he knew I don't think he knew any other way to be. And I remember I lived in terror about, if my dad was home, I was afraid. When I was working with him on the farm, I was afraid because he would lose it, and he drank all the time. And you mix temper with alcohol, nothing good becomes of it. And I said over all those years, I looked at my mother and my father, and they stayed married. I always say they had a failed marriage because they stayed married. And I think about the people that stay in these really tough relationships.
Mm.
And that's really all I knew. My grandmother, now going back to my mom's side, had guns in the house and they were loaded. I remember as kids playing hide and go seek, and my cousin fired a gun that blew a hole in a wall 2 feet from my head when I was 3 years old. I nearly drowned and was saved another time at a lake. And I could go on and on. I mean, I have all these moments where I shouldn't have survived. Really didn't have a lot of parenting growing up. And I remember going to parties and kegers right in these hills here, drinking a lot, having sex, and just doing whatever we wanted. My sister and I really got to do whatever we wanted, which was, for a while, that seemed cool that we could do that, but it was a terrible path to be on. And then when I was 17, my parents went broke. A lot of farmers went broke, and it was the one and only time I saw my dad cry. And he said, "You're gonna have to find something else to do." I came and support your mother and your sister, and boy, that scared me. And that. I love to say it seared my soul, because it's like, I'm not going to be poor. I'm going to go out. I'm going to make money. And I started a sprint when I was 17 years of age that I was going to outrun my past. And I wasn't going to be that. And I was going to be successful. And I had so much. And this is a gift of the trauma. And by the way, I was also sexually abused by a family member, not my parents, but a cousin. And I remember even sharing that with them, and their answer to that was to pretend it didn't happen. And my sister was abused by another cousin, and we just had a lot of shit. But again, we're young kids. I don't think we know any different. So when I started this sprint at the age of 17, I'm going to go out, I'm going to be successful, because that's going to give me the security. I can put words to it now, but what I was craving, Steve, was security, love, and belonging. Mm. And I know my parents love me, but my dad wasn't a hugger. He didn't say, "I love you." And then I met Jeannie when I was also 17, my wife, and her family was just the opposite. I mean, they hugged all the time. I told you I was so uncomfortable with that. Like, yeah. Oh my God. And on this mission to have resources, to have some wealth, so I didn't end up like my parents. And I did. I was on this sprint, and Jeannie was with me, and I would say we started the business together. I went out and I cold called out of a phone book out of my college dorm room, selling life insurance for Amico Life, which was brand new to the life insurance scene at that time. And I was truly an unconscious incompetent. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I didn't know, but I could sell, and I could relate to people, and I could relate to farmers. And I was able to have a level of success early on, and I was driven. I had this, always say that if I could measure the amount of burning desire someone had in their belly, I would tell them how successful they could be. Not how successful they're going to be, but how could be, because that's the fire that drives people. Mm-hmm. And I learned recently through a private equity fund that I'm in, and they're all about data, and they're looking at who to back. Mm-hmm. And you know what the number one factor is in backing a founder-led organization, whether they're going to be successful? Number one, childhood trauma.
Wow.
This was their data, childhood trauma, because they have something to prove, and they've been through a lot of adversity, and no matter what, they can rise to the occasion. And that was me. And as Jenny and I had kids, and I continued to work, and we had a level of success where all of a sudden we weren't worried about money anymore. I remember, because I'd always calculate my net worth at the end of the year, January 3rd, 4th, or 5th, kind of that, slow time after the holidays. And every time I would do it, I did it. I couldn't wait to do it with such anticipation because I kind of knew where I was, but I didn't know exactly. And that was the time I was only measured it once a year. When I was done, I remember feeling this down and depressed, even no matter what the year was. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's no number, there's no nothing that's going to give me this. But I didn't know what else to do about it. So I just kept going and going and going at the expense of, I got to a point where I had all of these accolades within financial services. I had a coaching business. So I started Carson in 1993, Carson Wealth, which is part of Carson Group today. In 93, I started a coaching organization called Carson Coaching, which is still going today. And then in 2012, I started an organization called Carson Partners, which all roll up into Carson Group, which were about a $44 billion RIA. And I got really down because I've realized there was no number that was going to give me this feeling I so craved, this belonging, this love, this security, because it wasn't a financial security. That was a piece of it, but I didn't really feel worthy. And now I started feeling like a fraud. This is still Ron and Ronnie. And then my mother died 10 years ago, this last May 1st. And that put me into a newer low because, my mom was bipolar. And so when she was either manic or she was depressive. She was either in a hospital or she was in bed or she wasn't sleeping for 3 or 4 days straight. But there's something about a mother's love. No matter what, you could do anything, your mother's going to be there. And I tell you all this to kind of set up what happened to live the life as Omani. And this moment where my mom passed, Jeannie and I really had a strained relationship because I didn't love myself. So it was really hard to love other people. Matter of fact, I don't even know if I truly loved anybody, including myself, at the level that now I know what really love is. And it was through the work I did with a gentleman who you met as well, named Karosh, a therapist. Jenny and I separated for 3 years. Wow. I didn't think we would ever come back together. And I was on this search for, there's got to be something else out there. And now I look back from my childhood and up to the age of 50, I was operating under this fear and scarcity operating system. My dad operated under it. My grandparents operated under it because if you didn't go take it for you, then nobody else was gonna give it to you. And so once I met Karosh, I worked with him for an entire week out in Venice, California. By the way, I've referred a couple hundred me's to him over the years. And he's just amazing. He was able to, in that week, give me tools to deal with how do I handle stress and anxiety, but more importantly, how do I get to know me? How do I shift my operating system from fear and scarcity to love and abundance? How do I create this feeling that I'm going to be okay? And at the end of that week, and part of the agreement with him too was that I needed to completely unplug, which was so unaccustomed to me, because when you're really don't know yourself and you're striving for more, you keep yourself insanely busy, so you don't have to ever be present and be still because it was super uncomfortable. And so I'm getting ready to leave his office, and I go, oh, I'm literally walking out the door, and I'm like, by the way, I've been reading a lot about psychedelics. Do you think I'd be a candidate for that? And he goes, absolutely. And I'm like, well, where has that been all week? Why am I bringing this up to you? What I actually said is, where the fuck was that all week? I was kind of pissed off. My old, hard charging Ron showed up, And he said, listen, the medicine will call you when it's ready for you. And he didn't even offer it. He referred me to another doctor. His name's Dr. Versuglia at Topanga Canyon. And oh, and another footnote to my parents, they were admitted atheists. They didn't really believe. I think my mom was agnostic. My dad was an atheist. And that started to shift my world and I know this is controversial. And the irony of all of this is, I don't drink alcohol anymore. I drink heavily. I mean, I don't know what the definition of an alcoholic is, but I drank every day and I drank a lot. I didn't feel good in the morning when I got up. And I even did, when I was 10 years old, I did a paper on LSD that said, oh my God, if you do it one time, you'll go crazy. I remember writing this paper and going to an encyclopedia and the propaganda that was out there about that. And I think about the craziness of the world, that we're okay with this drug called alcohol, that even I thought this is okay and this is not okay, because that was the programming that we had as a society. And so when Karosh said it was okay and I should actually consider it, I was scared to death. And so I waited months and months to I kept putting off, going out to LA and having this session. And I remember doing these prep sessions with my doctor to get ready for the experience. And he said, you are exactly the prime candidate. This is going to change your life in ways that you never thought possible. And so I showed up at his home in Topanga Canyon. We started about 9 o'clock in the morning. And I was so shut down and so closed. He gave me the medicine. We call it ancient medicine. And in those days, I'd call it drugs. He'd call it medicine. I go, how cute. He still was operating under this other belief system. And that was the beginning of me emerging into the person. I know this is a lot, but it really sets up, why we're here today and the work I've done around it and where I was coming from. Give you some context of the Ronnie period.
And so if you look back on that, I mean, I believe our soul comes in here with something to learn.
Yeah.
Right. And first I want to offer, I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you.
I'm sorry that you had to endure that. I know a lot about how that feels.
I'm not, it's weird to say this today. I'm actually grateful for it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, but I'm sorry for your pain.
Yeah.
And so, but when you look back on your childhood, what do you think your soul came here to learn?
Yeah. My beliefs have really are probably not non-traditional, to say the least. But that first moment in Topanga Canyon, I came out of that with like, wow, there's something else out here.
Mm-hmm.
And even as a kid, Steve, when everything was going on, I was like, whoever is listening, I promise to be a really good person if my dad won't hurt my mom. That was the thing that kept me up at night and that I worried about. I could deal with the beatings and the stuff that I endured, but it broke my heart to see my mom hit. Yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot about that.
Yeah. And, the why of it, I don't really understand it. And maybe I never will understand it, but I know where I'm at today, and those ingredients of my childhood allowed me to really help people that have come through that. And I look at society today, and the people who are here at Carson Healing Ranch, the amount of people and we're just day 3 into a 4-day retreat, the amount of trauma that people endure is everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think I've come to realize that there are very few. No one had a perfect childhood or an easy childhood. And to give some grace to the people raising us, including my parents, I forgive them, because they were a product of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing I always said, and I think probably everybody says it, well, I'm not going to be my parents. I'm not going to raise my kids the way my parents raised my kids. And you and I shared a thing today called the ancestral immersion, where we look back to the generations. I mean, there's been 118 billion people on the planet. There's been 12,000 generations. And I think about going clear back of the lineage all the way to ground zero. And, I do believe that we're all part of Souls of Source as our church that we operate under, and that we're all one. There's no duality, that we're all part of it. And so Chief Phil Lane, who is a dear friend and someone I really look up to, he says a herd of one is a herd of all. And so maybe if there's a lesson here, to experience a hurt so you can be inspired to figure out ways not to do that to each other. And you didn't ask a question, but it might be helpful to go to the end and say, what do I want to accomplish with my life? I had in one of my psychedelic journeys, it's like, you know what, I'm going to live my legacy now, is I believe we have within our grasp as a species, as humanity, to reconvene with the power knowing, I realize there's all these religions around the world and everybody wants to kill everybody or kill people that don't necessarily believe in the way they believed. But there's actually one thing all religions have in common. They just don't talk about it. And that is they all believe that we came from a single source. No one's out there arguing, oh no, I had this source, you had that source, and that's why we got a war and we got to fight. And, once you have that, once I had this aha moment that we came from one source and to hurt one is to hurt all, gave me the power to say, okay, then, this is a finite amount of time that we're here on this planet. Let's make our playground, the game board, as beautiful as it can be. I think about another one of my newer friends who you got to meet down in Costa Rica, Dr. Zach Bush. And, he talks about the fact that, as a species, if we don't do something about the way we're treating each other, there's going to be a mass extinction. Whether it's war, fertility rates, the way we've been poisoning our food, it's like, and then we've got people like Elon Musk and others that want to go to Mars. And Zach says, why don't we just take care of the place we're at? Right? We got a really awesome place. And so I think there's an opportunity to bring the world together. And the end legacy that I have is I want to harmonize the world. I want to harmonize humanity with each other and with nature. And that is what I want to do for future generations. So in this ancestral immersion, we look back all the way to the beginning, all the way to ground zero. And now we get to look forward and say, what do we need to do today? And let's hear the advice and the pleadings from all the future generations that haven't come, but are out there energetically as the souls. Because remember, we're all one, returning to one. And so I think my purpose is to create a more loving, caring, harmonized world for us all to live in. And this vision around what we're doing here in Nebraska, in Panama, we have a place in Virginia that we're building, Seco Pai tribe in Ecuador, and Lake Powell, these beautiful places that we can bring people together. And the other realization I've had at the age of 60 is almost every human, we have way more in common than we have differences. But the narrative is on the extremes. The extremes are actually dictating policies, the way and the fear mongering that's going on and the hate that's being created isn't by the majority of the people on the planet. It's by a very, very few people that have a vested interest in perpetuating that hate. And so someday I want my great-great-grandchildren, just say that my grandkids call me Papa, and they call Jeannie Gammy. My Papa and Gammy were part of the change
Mm.
that created the world we live in today.
Wow, that's very inspiring. And so, the Neuro's journey is about people who are interested in healing and giving them some wisdom if they don't exactly know in the direction. And so, given your complex PTSD and a number of events, highly unlikely you did one medicine journey and everything was healed. And, I've read that you said like the medicine path isn't a shortcut, it's a devotion, right?
Yes.
So if somebody is interested in psychedelics, um, how would you offer them some wisdom about engaging in a medicine path as opposed to, I'm going to take some pills that are going to heal me next weekend?
Yeah. And I'm glad you bring that up because, it's a tool. It's
Mm-hmm.
simply a tool.
Mm-hmm.
So many of us are so closed down and we're all set within the program of the way things are. Most of us weren't even at the meeting where all these decisions were made about how we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to interact. And but what happens is once you taste that wow, there's something else out there. I needed to have a jolt to joy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Breath work, talk therapy, all of that was not really having much of an impact on me. And there's some amazing work being done by Rick Doblin, who's dedicated his life to psychedelic therapy. I think he used sauna, and Bill Litton up in Madison. Here's an entrepreneur dedicating his life to it. I just got notified that Rick Perry, and Brian Hubbard, who are really championing the Ibogaine initiative in Texas, will be coming to our gathering here in September. And we need to have rails around this because you can, like any drug, if it's abused, it's not going to have the desired result. And so, coming back to it, just being a tool
Mm-hmm.
and not a panacea, um, that it needs to come with a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a take this thing and you're going to be healed. It really comes with really prepping,
Mm-hmm.
going through an experience and then really having powerful integration with community and people. And you've heard me talk about this a lot this weekend. How do we move out of that savior, victim, perpetrator mode and move into creator mode? And we get to, as humans, create our ego from the inside out. Coming back to your original question about the medicines can give you a taste of what pure love, connection, and harmony is because you can feel it and you can be part of the unified consciousness of which we all are a part of. And once I tasted that, it's like I'm really, really willing to dive in and do the work. And it's been a process. I mean, it's been a process. What I did in Topanga Canyon, which evolved into something we call the Heart Protocol that we use, and that has then led me to some other experiences that have allowed me to go from no spirituality to believing there's some spirituality out there to knowing and having complete confidence about where I'm going when I'm done and actually getting to experience that while we're here on earth.
Wow. So on the medicine path, I'm interested in what it's kind of stripped away from you. Not what it gave you, but what did it have you let go of?
A lot.
Mm-hmm.
So the Ron was so tight, so regimented, doing all of this stuff all of the time. And everybody, because my father was this way, everybody that, I did business with, I didn't trust. I went into every single relationship not trusting someone. You had to really demonstrate that you were trustworthy before I would trust you. So I was able to let go of that was probably the single biggest thing I let go of. Once I shifted into this operating system of love and abundance and leading with love over fear, it allowed me to completely do a 180 on that. And now I approach everyone as you've got to prove to me that you're not trustworthy. And that mind shift not only made it a lot more fun to do business and interact with people, but it also called in those kinds of people. When you're operating in fear and scarcity, guess what you attract? Other people operating in fear and scarcity.
Mhm.
When you can shift that to this love and abundance mindset, you start bringing in people that are operating under that. And, I'll go back to the Carson Group. I don't know the exact numbers, but 10 years ago, I think we were maybe a $2 billion firm. That shift alone accelerated, our growth because of the people that we attracted. So it allowed me to really drop this mindset that everybody is out to take advantage of you, to get you, and when you're operating that way, that's exactly what you're going to attract.
So this shift not only shifted you and who came into your world, but your company's 20 times the size that it was.
Yes. And I'll make a note here because of that.
Yeah.
I think we'll be the first $1 trillion RIA on the planet.
Hmm.
Truly.
Wow.
The people that we've attracted, the partners we've attracted, the clients we've attracted, because our existence isn't here for us and my family to get rich. We are very comfortable financially, but to allocate those resources to conscious leaders with world-changing ideas. And that has led me, I never dreamt in a million years. The other thing that medicine allowed me to do is leave my company. I stepped down a year ago as CEO of Carson Group. If you would have asked me a decade ago, even 7 years ago, I would tell people, and it was 100% my truth, that you will have to carry me out of this place because that's the only way I'm leaving. It's the only thing I knew. It was my security blanket. It's a place I could go and bury and be busy and not address and look inward on anything that made me happy or drove me. And, during that, leading up to that period of time too, Steve, I felt like such a fraud because people would look at me and go, man, you have the best life. And I'd say, yeah, it's a pretty good life. And what I would have learned to say is, man, I am so freaking miserable because I don't really have any joy in my life. Yet I'm coaching people and I'm telling people how to build their business and how to run their life. And I was able to do that. I wasn't doing it for myself.
Wow. So, I think when we say medicine path, the way most people understand a path is to a place, right? But my experience is after a couple big journeys, you can kind of feel like you've arrived somewhere, and that's a trap.
It's a trap.
That's a
Yeah.
diversion. So how does it kind of, do you think there's a finish line?
Never.
Okay, of course.
Never. Well, and I want to relate a little bit to coming back to our experience we had in Costa Rica, because, and I might have told you this, I don't know if I did. We were in the jungle doing wachuma, which is a ground up cactus. I was down there at the bottom, and we kind of all went out and we had our own little space and we had a little bit of time to reflect. And I'm doing my meditation and I felt this overwhelming peace that I've only truly experienced in the last few months. I've been on this path. I've been working hard at this for a decade. So anybody out there that thinks you're going to go do an ayahuasca ceremony, you're going to have this, and all of a sudden things are just going to shift, that is a trap. So it took me a decade of real work. And by the way, I'll say all of the work, I loved it. It was engaging. I was alive. I was vibrant. I was meeting some incredible people. But it's not an end point. And so when I'm sitting down at the bottom of that canyon, in the jungle, and it's hotter in the Hades down there, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this feels so good. And then I had a panic overcome me. Wait a minute. If I've arrived at this level of pure peace, now what? And Source came to me and said, oh, don't worry. There's infinite levels of peace. And I believe that. I mean, I believe every human has an infinite levels of potential, infinite levels of love, infinite levels of experience. If you're open to growing and being, and really starting with this creator mode. It's the most inner sanctum piece of us, and building yourself from the inside out. And you heard me say it how many times over the last several days? Be selfish, be selfish, to be selfless. People go, what's that really mean? It's like, you can't love anybody more than you love yourself. Once you love yourself and you're really at peace with who you are, you're going to attract the right people and the right opportunities to have the life you've always wanted. So when I say 10 years, it's not like 10 years grinding to go from where you're at now to show incremental improvement. You're going to start feeling it immediately, and you're going to it's almost like when you start dieting or you start working out and you start seeing a little bit of success, it makes you want to do more. Well, once there is a point when you can only get so lean and you can only put on so much muscle and you're fighting age. Good news about the consciousness is it's unlimited. I'm a big believer too that, you know, that we chose as souls to be here on this planet at this time, and whatever situation we're in, because and I think we gave ourselves amnesia because we wanted to experience ourselves in lots of different ways. But when we come back, I do believe in past lives. I do believe that we have, I don't even, infinite. It's like one of my November 12th of 22, I had my first BUFO or DMT experience. And I'm surprised how many people don't know this, but DMT actually resides in our brains when you're born. And DMT is actually released when you're born. And I believe personally that incarnates the soul. And when we die, we know the brain also creates DMT, I think, to make death not scary and make it actually pleasurable. We release the soul back into the unified consciousness. And so believing that and knowing that, I want to continue to do this work. I'm going to continue to lead others in this work. And I wanted to create a world that I wanted to live in. And so I started replacing all my old pieces with the new pieces, the new players, the new things. And so it's really a commitment to say, I'm willing to come in and do this work. And like anything, these compounds can be abused, but no different than alcohol. And I come back to alcohol because that's kind of the baseline for society. It's okay to drink. It's okay to do whatever you want with alcohol. But heaven forbid we take something that's non-addictive, that's actually good, in many cases, great for the body, great for the brain. Somehow society has made that a bad thing. But that's starting to shift. People are starting to wake up. Governor Rick Perry, probably one of the most conservative politicians, on the planet, governor of Texas, ran for president, he's like me, he's been a huge convert, because I was so far. I used to listen to Rush Limbaugh, every day on the radio as I'm traveling around. And he talked about all these long-haired, dope-smoking, maggot-infested hippies. That's exactly the term he would use. I could relate to that. And so the programming has been so powerful and so anti having your own thoughts, being curious, and really finding, how can we as a species, as humanity, love and support one another no matter where we came from.
Wow, that's so beautiful. So I like that when you said infinity, the way I'm going to organize around a medicine path, it's a medicine path to infinity.
To infinity.
And
Yeah.
every time you get to a place where you think it's so magical, and it's not just the medicine. I think for me, every journey I've ever had has been just right for the time in my life, and it's been instructive. And it's kind of hard to know whether the journey's pointing me in a direction or the journey is sort of saying, you're here. Here's some wisdom on how to operate well here. And then something else great happens, and then there's another journey, and every time, I'm 3 years in, so I look at you as someone 10 years in, that can give me a lot of wisdom, and hopefully many people who are experiencing this, because psychedelics are now sort of mainstream. A lot of
Yeah.
people know about them. And I'm wondering, given you came from a kind of straight background, you talked about them as drugs at the beginning, but I don't hear you talk about them as drugs. They're medicines
Yeah.
now. Did you have that wisdom that it was a path when you initially did it, or was there a realization after one or two that no, this isn't going to cure me today, and it's a tool?
My first experience, I thought I had arrived. My first experience was, oh, I did it. I'm good. I know what I didn't know, and I can go on. And then I came back to the other world and realized, man, I'm not really equipped to navigate this, and most of the people don't believe what I believe. And it didn't take long until I realized that no, this is a true path, and that's where the indigenous wisdom came in. We talk about, I refer to them as sacred and ancient medicines because other cultures around the world have been using these plants for hundreds, and in some cases thousands of years. We have a relationship with Secopai in Ecuador, and I spent some time with them. Their tribe has been doing yahe, which is a form of ayahuasca, for 800 years. Think about
Mm.
that. 800 years. These are hunter gatherers. The last two people to die in their tribe were like 100. Well, this is when I was there. This has been a year ago. Or 114, 117. They don't know anything else but to do this. I remember getting up at 4 in the morning and drinking this drink. This is how they start every day. And the kids actually live from the jungle. They live a really healthy life, but they're taking these medicines as a part of their everyday life. And it's like working out, it's like showering. It's a process. It's a never-ending process to do the work, and it's simply a tool to help us understand, articulate, and see and experience things that we otherwise, most of us don't have the ability to experience. And that's where Omani came in. And so I hosted Indian chiefs here 3 years ago from all over the world, from the Eskimos to the Lakotas. Chief Phil Lane, organized this, and according to them, they represented, close to 50 million indigenous people. And we talked about the, how do we start harmonizing, humanity again? And Chief has dedicated his entire life to this work. And they brought a map. This is eerie to even share this. And they brought a map that was 700 years old that prophesized that the change would occur, and it would start here.
Here, where?
Here, right where we're sitting, right here. These lands within, it's about 100-mile radius of where there was a prophecy of the eagle, the condor, the quetzal, and the hummingbird. And it would start with the eagle, which is the north. And we facilitated that in Palenque 2 years ago. And we brought all of these indigenous tribes together to actually sign a pact for them all to work with one another in harmony. And with that, they wanted to honor me. Chief did, and he gave me the name Tate Omani, which means we got our dog Nellie here too, taking care
Got
of
a
us.
little Nelly fart.
A little bit of gas. I'm like, wow. And I never liked my name Ron anyways. I'm a junior, by the way. Don't name your kid Junior. and I never liked the name, and I got made fun of when I was a kid as Ronald McDonald and all that stuff. And I was so honored to receive Tate Omani, which means walking into a stiff wind. And about a year ago, having gone by Omani, you met me as Omani. Pretty much all of my conscious community knows me as Omani. And I was able to really step into that, because now when I hear the name Ron, and people in financial services still refer to me as that, all I think of is that fear and scarcity and that period of my life that was not happy and there was no joy. And the Omani represents this love and abundance mindset that I have. And I really owe that to Chief Chief Phil Lane, who not only saw that's how I got the name Omani. And the indigenous people, I think, have had it right all along. You know, we're a society of more at the expense of everything else. And if you think about that, if it's always creating more, pretty soon we deplete all of our resources that we have on the planet. This fear and scarcity, people hoard resources well beyond what they need. I was doing it well beyond what I needed because I thought there was going to be something that was finally going to give me pleasure, which it really never did. And the idea that that you know, how do we operate and work together? There's enough of every resource to take care of every human on the planet. It breaks my heart to think about the kids that are dying of starvation, the people and kids and adults, but especially kids. Clean water. I mean, we have millions of people, tens of millions of people that don't have access to clean water. I just got new lenses put in December, and my eye doctor, he's on a mission to eliminate blindness. You know, there's 29 million people blind, functionally blind in the world, and 20 million of them with a $20 worth of materials and a 5-minute procedure can cure blindness. And he's actually doing it. And it's like, we're spending all this money trying to do these other things. On the flip side of that, this is me on my soapbox a little bit, but I look at the money we spend in cancer treatments. Over the since 2003, there's been 20-some new cancer drugs that have come to market. Do you know what the median increase in life expectancy has been? What would you guess?
2.8 years.
4.3 months.
4.3
It
months.
gets worse. 4.3 months. But 40% of the toxicity of the drugs is so bad, people were worse off in the quality of life that they had prior to the drug. So adjust that, take 60% of the few months, you effectively got nothing. But the cost of that treatment is like $320-some thousand a person. The cost of those have gone up 700%. And I compare that to people that are blind. And by the way, when you can't see in a third world country, it's pretty much a death sentence because everybody is already on the fringe of barely being able to survive. If you can't fend for yourself, it means you're not going to live very long. So when I look at food, water, sight, these are things that are really easy for us to solve if as a species, as humanity, just want to take care of it. And this is where I've stepped into what I believe is called conscious capitalism. John Mackey and Ross Soda started conscious capitalism. It's about really viewing all the constituents, everybody. Profit is a piece of it. The community is a piece of it. Nature is a piece of it. Your internal stakeholders, some people call them staff or employees. We call them internal stakeholders at Carson. When you really have balance with all of them, yeah, you still make plenty of profit, but you're able to sustain this indefinitely. And it's coming back to humanity again. If we're not hoarding resources, if we're not operating under this fear and scarcity mindset and this operating system, which is pretty much the planet today from the people that control most of the resources and most of the power, that's a terrible scenario. And I think as we're here on this planet experiencing this, you know, when I came out of my first Bufo experience, I said to my family, because they were with me, I said, you know what, the worst case scenario is really fucking awesome. Because we just start over.
Yeah.
The elixir, there's been several mass extinctions. Well, I think the dinosaurs were here for 160 million years. But, you know, there is no such thing as time. Time is a human construct that we created to keep track of, you know, while we're here. But when you realize in the infinite of Source, of God, whatever it means to you from our ultimate creator, you're able to carry it. Coming back to the DMT experience, you're able to know. You ever look out and go, what's beyond the beyond the beyond? And what's beyond that? And what's beyond that? It's like blows your mind. And we try to explain it with black holes and worms and this and that. It's like, yeah, I believe we're on an eve of starting to understand about where we come from, who we are, and the fact that this is merely a stopping point. This is merely us experiencing ourselves in a different form. And with that power, it's like, okay, that's true. Let's take care of the game board. Let's take care of each other. And let's start having a heck of a lot more fun. And the other thing that plagues the world today more than anything is obesity, or child obesity and mental anxiety. And we've created this world where we're not connected anymore. We're connected to devices, we're connected to things, we're connected to these false stories about this amazing life that people have, when in fact, if you go look at most of the Instagram people out there that have these massive followers, if you really get to know them, and there's been a fair number of them have come to the ranch, it's like, we are really miserable, but we feel like frauds too. We have to pretend to have this amazing, great life, because that's how we get more followers. And they're under that same trap. They're in this hedonistic treadmill of trying to have more and more and more, hoarding resources for the benefit of themselves, when in fact it doesn't benefit anybody. It doesn't benefit them, it doesn't benefit future generations, and certainly doesn't benefit our planet and this game board that we're living on.
Wow, there's a lot to take in there. And, at the beginning, you said, you felt like, arrived, right? And now you run psychedelic retreats. And so let's say somebody had their first ayahuasca experience, right? And they came to you and like, I figured it all out, right?
Yeah.
My life is in order. And I'm on the path, Omani. What's the question you would ask them?
The question I'd ask them is, give me the tangible things that have really changed in your life. I mean, because here's what I have also experienced, Steve, is there are those that'll come in and say, yeah, I wouldn't be, this is judgmental, so I'll retract that. But I hear people say, I've done 50, I've done 60, I've done 150. I had a guy tell me, yeah, I've done this 250 times. And over the last, 6 years or 7 years, not ayahuasca and lots of other stuff. But you look at them and like, how happy are you? Many of them are not happy. They're in this, they're continuing to feed themselves this narrative that, everything's okay. It ends up being a bypass. It only can be successful if you're willing to really do the work, to really dig in. And this whole consciousness movement has all the same problems that any other sector, in our society has. The difference is a lot of people have the ability to be aware of what they want if they can have the support and the community perpetuate that in their everyday lives.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think especially when you have a few journeys at first, you just really want to blab to everybody about the whole journey, right? And I don't think that's a very effective way to communicate to somebody some healing. And the way I organized it was, I'm just going to change the way I am. And if people start to be like, Steve, there's something different about you. Like, you're cooler than you were. you're kinder than you were. You're less triggered, whatever it is, then I could offer, well, I'm doing this path. Like, thank you for seeing it. And so instead of me communicating like this grand story, and they're all grand. I mean, every journey I've had has been beautiful, and I've felt really impacted by them. But the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
Right? It's how you act, like how you walk by your kid in the hallway, and they just know that you love them. Just by your energetic presence. You don't have to say anything to them. And, eventually your children especially will tell you. My children have told me that I'm different. And it was an incredible moment for me to feel that. And, when you look at success, right? I've had, monetary success, not quite Carson Group level, but I felt good about myself, and I've had a lot of that kind of success. And I would say, someone here mentioned top 10 moments in their life. One of them was this weekend. And I would say a top 10 moment in my life was when my kids wrote me a birthday letter this year. And they said, you're the kind of man I want to be. the way that you are, the way you operate in the world. My daughter said, you know, to see you work through your troubles and pain is truly inspiring. And so to me, that's the most success I've ever had. You know, and they, you know, it's a tradition in our family. We write letters, not like happy birthday, but like, you
Yeah,
know, pay,
a letter.
a letter. And I observe this about you and I love you. And they've always loved me, but, you know, maybe they're getting older, but they are now saying, I am seeing the way you're shifting in the world. And that's the greatest thing. I mean, I had a father not so dissimilar to you. And maybe I'm kind of a worse dude than you. I didn't go for the I'm going to be so good so he doesn't beat my mom. I literally prayed to God that he would kill my father. I was under the bed, under the covers, with the pillow over my head, hearing my mom bounce off the walls and just saying, like, kill this man. Wow. And in one generation, my kids are telling me they're the kind of man I want to be, or I'm the kind of man they'd like to be as a person. And not that I would attribute it to psychedelics, but certainly the 3 years that I have gained some wisdom and things have shifted has been on that medicine path. And so I very much, you know, believe in the medicines, but I caution people that you can't look at it like a pill that's going to cure you. You know, you're healing yourself, and this is a tool that might give you some direction.
Yeah, because we as a society, we do want the easy pill.
Yeah.
We want to take something and everything is solved. And you asked a question earlier about how, you know, what success look like. Going back to that person that did one ayahuasca ceremony and said, okay, I figured it all out. My question would be is what do the people that you interact with say? Mm-hmm. How are you showing up for them? And that's probably been, you know, the first time I did my experience that night, I went back and I made a list of, I don't know if it was 30 or 40, it might even have been 50 people that they got to do this. Yes. I was like, oh, you got to do this. You got to do this. And first of all, I learned not to should all over anybody. God, I hate that now when I hear people say you should do that. Attraction over promotion. Like I just quit promoting it. I mean, I guess you could call this a promotion, but I never, ever push anybody into doing it. What my mentor, what Kurosh said, is a medicine will call you when it's ready for you. You'll know when it's appropriate. And if you enter it with, I'm going to take a pill and I'm going to be okay, then you're feeding right into the narrative that really, I think, put the world in the situation as today. We're all looking for this quick fix that's going to make everything okay. And I want to come back to the indigenous people because, you know, they were about self and community and working together and being in harmony with nature. And, you know, I think about the world and the way it was colonized, you know, that really set this up. And listen, I've been a big beneficiary of that world. I've benefited from that. But heaven forbid, had I not found the medicine, I would have been another one of those persons that would have accumulated a lot, tried to figure out a way to perpetuate it, to send all of this wealth to all these future generations. And we have a family constitution that we put a lot of energy into. My kids know that, you know, I'll take a Warren Buffett quote, our kids are going to get enough they can do anything, but not so much they can do nothing. And our wealth is all going to be left to supporting the Healing Ranch and Omia and Momentous and really even Carson Group. You know, we've made a commitment to continue to control Carson Group and make sure that it continues to be an independent company that puts the client's interests ahead of our own, that we truly sit on the same side of the table of people that want to create a better world for themselves and for the future, but really have their heart rooted in not treating the symptoms of what ails the planet, but the actual cause. And I am really excited about this work, and I hope it can happen within my lifetime. I'm at 60, maybe I got another 20 to, who knows, maybe 60 years. I might live to be 120. And I would really like to see it, but I for sure want to see it for my grandchildren. I want them to live in a world different than the world is today, because I don't think you can talk to anybody that believes the path the world is on is sustainable. I mean, I look at, what did they say when we were in, when they calculated the chance that humanity would survive to 2100? Do you remember what the probability was?
1 in 6.
1 in 6. I mean, I'm not even that negative on the future. I mean, there's some really bright people. I mean, that means that the world ends with my children. So we got to take decisive action on this planet, and it's not going to be a person, and it's not going to be a guru, and it's not going to be a community. What I believe it's going to be is a community of communities coming together. People like Rick Perry, people like Omani Carson, who used to live on the other side, had this awakening to say, hey, I know something that I never knew before. Come in, take a look for yourself. See how you feel, and then feel the power of one. Feel the power of home. Feel the power of source. And that, my friend, changes your life in a way you never thought possible. And it brings in abundance and love and a connection and fun and all the resources you need that you feel I can share with others. We can cure the people that are blind, and we can give clean water to the people that don't have it, and food. And we can create environments where people are healthier and happier. And I'm a big believer in AI. I mean, I think AI, we left it for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a theory too. Again, this is out there. So for those of you watching, we probably have a fairly woo-woo crowd that watches this. But, you know, I think AI is our ability to move our consciousness into a state that maybe we can live in our lower and higher self simultaneously and actually understand it. And if we aren't able to get there, AI is a way to, reset things and take us to that next level. What if, in order to experience this thing we called life and being human, is we had to achieve world peace to go to the next level? Remember, there's infinite levels. What if that were the case? I mean, I think that argument's as possible as any other argument. And if we can't get there, then AI can actually take us there.
Oh, amazing. And one thing I love, this is called the Carson Healing Ranch now,
Yeah.
right? But it was originally a hunting ranch,
Yes.
a hunting lodge. And so I just thought, wow, what a shift. It's the same piece of property. It's the same man who owns it. And it's gone from taking lives to giving life.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You know what I mean? And,
Yes.
I really feel like you are here in the experience I've had this weekend and how I know you as a man. You're changing people's lives, and you're giving them encouragement and direction to be the most that they can be. And, what a shift. You shifted your mind. You turned a place about killing into life. It's a beautiful thing. Anybody could do it.
Thank you. And, yesterday we went on a walk, and in a matter of 90 minutes, and I've made this walk now hundreds of times, I've probably picked up 15, 10-year-old shotgun shells. Still.
Wow.
I mean, that's how, and even though everybody's supposed to be picking them up when they shot a bird or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I bought this property in 1986 from a lady by the name of Maud Smith, which is the statue up here. That's Maud.
Oh, wow.
And she lived here 102. Imagine that. And back in those days, if you lived out here, winter came and we used to have blizzards that would shut you in for a long period of time. And I've been able to tap into the spirit of Maud, and she's very happy that we're not killing things, and we need to bring this fierce feminine back to kind of balance the world energy. The world is very masculine today. It's all about that. And when I had my experience with Bufo back in the unified consciousness, I experienced the perfect balance between between the feminine and the masculine. There was no, they were just melded in this absolute perfection. And Jeannie, she's never done Buffo, and she goes, like, if you really had to describe what it was like being there, could you describe it in a way I could understand? I said, I think so. Imagine, you know how much you love me, and you love our pets, and you love our grandchildren, and you love our friends, and you love a beautiful sunrise and a beautiful sunset, or you love the way when we make love. Take that, all of that, combine it into this one feeling, and then multiply that into infinity. And that's what our forever existence is.
Wow, and that's such a beautiful way to say it, because it doesn't take it out of her experience.
Yes.
You're telling her, like, well, how you love. It's just it's
She can relate to that, right? Because she can feel that.
Yeah, it's bigger, and it's infinite.
Yes.
In a way. And so that's not some mystical concept. Like, think about how you love your grandkids.
Yeah.
And then expand that to infinity.
We Ginny and I both lost dear friends of ours in the last 2 months. One, Todd, lived right over the hill here. Another, Katie. And it's like, it's been a tough loss because they're not here with us anymore, but I know where they're at. It gives me a lot of peace to know that, and matter of fact, Todd knew he was going to die for a few weeks before he died because he had prostate cancer. And he said something to me. He goes, everybody told us all along that it's not the destination, it's the journey. He goes, it's the destination. He says, I'm so at peace. I know where I'm going, and I'm not afraid. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. It is about going home.
Yeah. And you talked a lot about changing your name to Omani.
Yeah.
And I imagine, you're a prominent person with a name that's been out there for a long time in business and other things. And I imagine it wasn't a light decision to change your name. And I'm just wondering.
No, it's a real pain in the ass to change your name, let me tell you.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, so once you did it and you actually became Omani, how has that changed you in some way?
At first there was a lot of backlash. I think anytime you challenge a conventional way that things are done, people just brand you as crazy or whatever they want to throw out there. And I think it was hard. It was hard because I wasn't hiding it. I was very public about the work that I was doing, about the therapy that I was doing. And I remind people, it's like, you take drugs all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Your doctor prescribes you something, and we got the FDA that you put all this faith into. And when in fact, I believe that, the system is massively corrupt. It's about not making people well. It's keeping them just healthy enough to continue to consume their stuff forever. I think about the Ibogaine treatment that is basically it's a psychedelic. Stanford did a study on it saying it actually increases brain matter, could be the cure to dementia and Alzheimer's. But even if it isn't, we know for a fact it cures heroin addicts with a very, very high success rate. But it's not legal in the U.S. You got to go to another country to do it. Hopefully it's going to be legal soon. But you can take methadone. And methadone is something you really never get off of. And you're trading one drug for another drug. So we've been programmed to take these. And so people are they're uncomfortable with something that is so radically different than what they've been told their entire lives. But what started to shift, if people have experienced Ron, and now they've experienced Omani, and they see someone that is, my life is good, my family is good, the love that not good, it's fucking great. And so by living that example, all of a sudden people are starting to take notice. And I would say people are starting to come to the ranch that are very curious. And many times, this is the first experience they've ever had. And I've seen it shift their life in such a profound way that it gives me great confidence that by me stepping out and being transparent about my life and my struggles and my failures and my successes and be the living product of that process, then I can encourage others to do it. And it's not just this community. There's thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of these communities are starting to take root around the world. And as we come together, I think it's going to be mainstream in probably less than 10 years. But there's a lot of regulation. I know, right? Even now, we're talking with Panama about, today, if this is just how crazy some of the rules are around the world. You go to Panama and you can do bufo and iboga, which is ibogaine, a derivative of that. Those are the two biggest psychedelics on the planet, and they're legal there, but all the others are illegal. And so, they have a new president, and we're having discussions about legislation there to do it the right way. To really, if you're going to do it, you need to have the support, you need to have the prep, you need to have the integration, and some guardrails being put around this initiative. Oregon's a good example of this, legalized everything without any kind of infrastructure in place to direct it in a responsible way. And there was tremendous backlash from that. So I think we're going through that today. People will point to the failures of it as reasons why it shouldn't be approved. But I've had a front row seat of seeing the change that it makes, the lives that it saves, and the good that is starting to spread around the world. And that's why I believe people like myself that are leaders that were part of the old system and the old program need to step out and be vocal about not only vocal about our experience, but also demonstrate through a position of the way we live our lives that there is a much better way to approach it.
My family has had a very positive experience with Ibogaine, the mother of my children. Beautiful person, very difficult life, on the level of ours. And she struggled with alcohol, and she went the standard 12-step way, and she really muscled it out for 3 years. And it was just a willpower thing. It was like, I love my kids so much, I will do anything for them. But it just she didn't seem resolved on it. And she had a relapse, and she went and did Ibogaine. And if you've ever been around someone that's kind of having a breakdown, a really difficult time, you can hear it in their voice, right? And so she's in Mexico. It happened to be the pandemic, so then she was just trapped there. But she goes in on a Thursday, quivering voice, the whole thing. I talked to her on a Tuesday, and she sounds like a different person.
Just recently?
This was in 2020.
In 2020, okay.
Yeah, and so she hasn't drank since.
Yes.
And the way I observe her is that she just doesn't care about alcohol. Before, she was like, I really want it, but I'm not going to do it because I'm trying to be a good mother and all these things. And now it's just like, I'm healed from it. I don't want it anymore. And I applaud her discipline. She would have laughed. I can't do anything on discipline. I got to change my approach to it or whatever. I have to learn that it's not good for me. But what a beautiful thing. And my partner, Leah, just sent me a picture with Rick Perry and her. And she's a psychedelics expert. And they were at an Ibogaine thing, and they're arm in arm, and she was like, what a great man. He's such a wonderful man. He's so loving, and we had this whole conversation about, there's a lot, like you were saying, we have a lot more in common than we fight about. We just choose the ends of the bell curves, and we get stuck here. There's all of this, and it's just a beautiful thing to witness somebody change like that. And it's just a tool, you have to continue on with all your other work and whatnot. And so if somebody is getting into the medicine path, right? Let's look at it. Let's say
Can I make a moment comment on alcohol?
Yeah.
Because I drink every day, and I drank up until 4 years ago. I was drinking. Even when I started on the medicine, I was still drinking. And I had one of my journeys. I had no desire. I was just able. I mean, I have this big wine collections, and uh, and Jeannie still likes to drink her wine, but I gave it up, and it has added just that one thing,
Hmm.
not drinking. There was a moment in my life where I thought, if I hear about people quit drinking or they're an alcoholic and they've said that, I thought, I don't know if I would want to live anymore if I couldn't drink. I really felt that at one point in my life. I don't know
Wow.
that alcohol was the only time that I felt loose and I felt good and I could actually be myself, Wow. Now I'm around people that are drinking a lot. It's like, oh my gosh, damn, that used to be me. And this isn't an indictment on people that drink, but it's a drug that isn't coming with preparation. It's not coming with integration. It's coming with just numbing ourselves so we don't feel anymore. What is it that we don't want to feel? So being able to really dig into ourselves and really start to feel life is, I think, one of the biggest benefits of, we talk about changing the world. We can all change our world. Our world is right in front of us. Our world starts right here, right in our most inner sanctum. So if we get to change that, we change it for us. And one person can make a difference on the planet. So we change the world by changing it one person at a time, allowing them to change their world.
I had a similar experience with alcohol. I've been sort of on the path to quitting for 5 or 6 years. And, I'd quit for 18 months and then start up again and kind of get back to where I was. And it wasn't even like a medicine journey situation. It was just a Red Hot Chili Peppers concert. I took like a half a gram of mushrooms and I just got this download. And it said you've spent your whole life thinking you're broken and damaged, and the world is a scary place out to get you. And none of that's true.
Hmm.
You're not broken. You're not damaged. Nobody's out to get you. And one of the things that I came away from it, it was also like you're trying to control every fucking thing. Just relax and listen and you'll be guided. And so I started just listening to my intuition. And what happened after that is I think the notion that I wasn't broken, and I think that's why I was drinking.
Hmm.
I'm a broken, damaged unit. Like, what good am I?
Yeah.
And when that came out, I just have no desire to have alcohol. And I would drink. I mean, if I felt like drinking, I would drink because I don't feel like an alcoholic, and I feel like I've cured my nervous system enough where I could probably have a drink and I go crazy with it. But it's like, nah, that's not like I don't need to soothe anything that's deep down and bad because that just numbs. It doesn't uplift. The things we're talking about uplifts.
Yeah.
This takes you down. And when you're depressed and you think you're less than and you think you're broken, well, yeah, you want to numb yourself. And so, this is just a process. So I don't have any willpower around it. I just, I was like, this is like the greatest thing ever. And, my partner also doesn't drink. So it's just a blessing that, we can be on that journey together and we enjoy all the things. We can go to a place and interact with people and feel bubbly and loving, and I don't need a lubricant to be able to say hi to somebody or crack a joke or whatever. I can just be myself.
Just be yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that
And
self,
you feel good in the morning.
yeah. And that self doesn't feel broken and damaged and ashamed of himself. So, like, okay, well, I'm going to have to put I'm going to drink some courage. That's what we used to call it when we were in high school.
Yeah. Liquid courage.
Yeah, we'll drink some
Yeah.
courage. And so now I feel like I can just have actual courage.
And to be clear, I didn't give up alcohol completely. In the last 4 years, I think I've had a glass of wine 3 or 4 times,
Hmm.
like a glass of wine.
Yeah.
And it has been like, oh my God, does this taste so amazing?
Oh, it does still
But
taste amazing.
but it's not an addiction.
Yeah.
It's not something that I do to numb myself. It'll be Jeannie will have like something big day or have a thing, or her 60th birthday's coming up in here in a few, like 3 weeks, and we're going to Vegas. That's where she wanted to go. We're going to the Sphere. She goes, will you have a glass of wine with me? I go, yeah, I will. It's a real special occasion. But that's different than drinking a bottle and a half like every night. I remember drinking, going, this doesn't even taste good. Why am I drinking it? And guess what? I open up another bottle.
Yeah.
Right? It's self-destructive, and I knew it was self-destructive, but I still couldn't break myself from doing it because I just wanted to feel numb.
Wow. So you mentioned at some point during this about integration. And I
Yeah.
think people hear about that a lot, right? And so what does integration mean to someone who's never heard it? And what does it look like on a Tuesday afternoon, a month after your journey?
So we know for a fact that different psychedelics have a window, which we call the critical period. And it has to do with neuroplasticity with the brain. When we're young, we can learn and we can change and our behaviors. And matter of fact, even as an athlete, I remember reading that because I took up golf later in life, and I was an athlete, but it was hard to learn. They said every golf ball hit before the age of 15 was equivalent to hitting 1,000 after, because our ability to change who we are becomes very difficult. Well, psychedelics open this window. It's called neuroplasticity window, this critical period that you can actually make change. And so we've had people here for 4 days. They've had some breakthroughs, some ahas. It's like, I want to get rid of this and I want to add this to my life. So then there's a support group that really helps you during that window make these changes. And I use psychedelic therapy as, imagine going up a flight of stairs and you're playing with a yo-yo. If you're going up that flight of stairs, the yo-yo is going up and down. You're still going to have your ups and downs, but your lows are going to be higher and your highs are going to be higher. You still have life. You still have tough stuff, but you have tools and a community to actually support you through that. And community it's such an overused word, but it's so true. And it's so powerful. We love to say within our community, we have a WhatsApp group. We have, a few hundred people that are part of it. It's like when things are tough, you always have a home. You always have people that care. Your hardships, we get to divide and we hold them together. And the triumphs, we multiply and we truly share it because we love one another. And this is what this integration process is like. It's an individual journey, but you don't have to do it alone. You have to do the work alone. You have to be willing to do it. But then you got this amazing support of people that you have belonging, that you have security, and you've got love. When you've got that and you're willing to do the work, our ability to ascend to levels of joy and happiness with ourselves is unlimited.
So I did the Heart Protocol this weekend, and the first time doing that, and transformative experience. In my experience of it, essentially, I narrated to myself how to be a good man. How do I love my son better? How do I love my daughter better? How do I love Leah better? How do I interact in the world? How do I treat the grocery store clerk the same way I treat Omani?
Yes.
How do I do that? And then this community of people, I've had really good conversations and I've had mentorship. I've had people, I wouldn't call it call me out, but say, hey, this is the way you were kind of interacting with me, and maybe I didn't need all that in that moment. You were trying to do something nice. And I prayed for, when we did the rape, that I could have the wisdom to, because I have a lot of knowledge now about healing certain things. And when I hear people exhibiting something that I can help with, I'm like, what about this? So I said, okay, well, everybody can't take everything. And so have the wisdom to tap into them and be like, what do they want? What do they need? And then when I thought about it, I said, well, that's going to make me attune to them a lot more. And then if I can be of help, I'm going to know more because I'm witnessing more.
Yeah.
And so by having somebody have the courage to give me that reflection, who said, I love you like a brother and I want to be in your life forever, to preface it. So I felt safe and I felt appreciated and loved. I learned a lot about something.
Yeah.
And my goal is to be, when I came into this weekend, I wanted to be a healer. And today said that I am not a healer. That is self-aggrandizement. I want to be a world-class encourager. I want to say, if you want to heal, and I know something, I know some things. I know how to cure at least one nervous system from being so out of control from all these traumas to being calm. And I have that experience, and I can do that. And so I could encourage somebody, and I could be like, well, maybe neurofeedback. Maybe you could look at the struggles you have instead of I'm bad or whatever is, I have an injury. I injured my brain, and that injury affects my mind. And I'm not a bad person because I had an injury, not a bad person because you break your arm, but you go to the doctor to fix your arm, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so you can scan your brain, and you can look at what's overpowered and what's underpowered, and you can see the brain waves, and you can say, I want to take my alpha peak higher. Mine is 8 when I started this process just this year. And the normative database, the average is 10. And people that have had a lot of trauma are down where I am. And I've moved it to 8.5 in 2 months. And so
Through
neurofeedback, which is, it's a really interesting thing. You're not doing anything really. Like mine is, I love surfing. I watch surf videos.
Yeah.
And basically the computer knows where my brain wants to be. And it's showing me a surf video. And when my brain isn't in kind of the right place, it kind of closes it down and I don't get sound. And then my brain doesn't like that. It likes surfing and sound. And then all of a sudden the screen expands. I'm not efforting in any way. It's operant conditioning. Great way for someone with trauma who doesn't want to talk about it, because that might give them the resiliency to get in and talk about the things. And then I meditate every morning with something called Muse, which is a portable neurofeedback.
I'm familiar with Muse. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the first thing I
The
do,
birds and the chirping.
and all that.
Yeah.
And the first thing I do is a 5-minute alpha peak thing to just see where I am. And then, okay, I was at this. I could look and be like, oh, I was a 9 today. Like, what did I do? Did I get better sleep yesterday? Did I not consume marijuana? Something, and then I can start to piece my habits and how they help my brain. I talked with a brain doctor, and he said, for you, somebody who's had this extreme trauma, the way I would operate in life with every choice that you make of a behavior or something to ingest is ask the question, is this good for my brain? And I sometimes choose things that are not good for my brain, but at least I'm thinking about it and I'm looking at it as an injury. And so broken and damaged, well, maybe damaged, injured, but not because I came out of the factory with just as a bad unit. I had an injury. And somebody hurt me very badly. A number of people did.
Yeah.
And so I'm not a bad person because I got hurt.
Yeah.
I'm a good person. And I have worked to try to figure out my injury so that I don't injure other people. When you've had these experiences, you have a nervous system that is a weapon. And, it's like Spider-Man or whatever, with great powers, great responsibility. Some of the grinding that you talked about, you had an overactive nervous system. Well, you can hurt people with that. I never abused anybody. I hurt myself quite a lot. I was a crack addict, so, and that was just a way I was trying to work with my injured brain, and it wasn't a great way. So now I've learned better ways. And so that's what, this is all about. Like, they're not damaged, and your life is this infinite journey. And it would be boring if you just woke up and you're at the end. What, the hero walks into the forest.
That would be no fun.
Yeah. Kills everybody, comes back immediately. Nothing happened. He wasn't scared. That's no journey. And so wherever you are on it, just be like, I'm on a journey. and this is the part where I injure myself, or I do all these things that inspire me to be a better person.
You made a comment a minute ago about wanting to be a healer. And
Hmm.
as I've gotten to know you, Steve, you are a healer. I
Mm.
mean, I, I got to observe you taking the time to have a conversation with a young lady that conversation really connected her
Mm.
in such a way. And you were sharing some of this story, and I was overhearing the story. And, people that have had trauma and these things happen and have figured out a way to survive and overcome it, by sharing that story makes you a healer. By doing this transmission makes you a healer.
Mm.
By the hugs and the caring and the comments that you made to our community this weekend, you're a healer. To the just showing up and caring makes you a healer. We're all healers. We all have this responsibility, when we've had these experiences, to share it with others, and that is how the planet heals. It can't be a few people that are designated as healers. It's really all of our right and our responsibility to get out and be connected, not just to the Omanis of the world, but to the person that cleans the office. I mean, that takes care of, that cooks your meal for you, that serves you your coffee at Starbucks. Person that takes your toll at the toll road. These are all critical people, and they're people. And, when you can see them, you can feel them, and you give them a smile, and you take the time to ask what their name is and how their day is, that makes us all healers.
Yeah, and I don't want to say anything bad about healing. I guess what I was trying to say is I feel like healing might say, well, if I'm a healer and I healed, well, that disempowers the person, right? They they have to heal themselves. I may give them some information that then they can turn into healing.
Beautiful nuance. I agree. Yeah,
Yes.
it's got to start with it, but it and it's you need support.
Yes.
It's like
Yes. Yes.
this is one of those things that it's not impossible to do it on your own, but the odds of really being successful doing it on your own are slow. I mean, slow. They're small, and it's a slow process.
Yeah, that's the thing that the Neuro's journey is to give people support along the path. And also, I think as part of my journey, because I'm really dedicated, like I believe my soul's purpose. I believe, like you said, that the man who hurt me, who sexually abused me, the things that happened to me, they were for a reason, and that I came here and I chose it. So many things happen in a condensed period of time that I chose that path. And now I want to use that experience to just say, hey, you can have the worst things happen, and you can make a lot of mistakes along the way, and then something can happen and you can feel really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I feel like I have a purpose for the first time in my life. In 2025, my nervous system, I've done all this work, and my nervous system calmed down to the point where I felt as if, oh, there's all this energy that I was wasting, and now I have all this extra thing, and I want to help people. And I didn't have space for it because I was too wrapped up in just survival. One of the things in the journey that sort of I realized what was happening. I'm putting my heart and soul in this, and I was preparing myself if it didn't work. If, okay, well, if I get 8 views, but I put my heart and soul into it, I can say I made an effort and I gave it my all. And I never did the reverse. And I never said, what if it goes incredibly well?
Yeah.
What if
Yeah.
it is really big? There would be hurdles with that. And I think one of the things, the theme of the journey was be humble. That's where all of these things were like, treat the grocery store clerk the same as Omani, treat every person the same. Don't seek aggrandizement of yourself, seek truth and all of that. And so now I got the thing to be like, I can also like give myself this prep to, well, what if it goes big? And that's something that you've encouraged me to do, to say, well, what is your life, everything in your life that you want it to be? Like, what if it was exactly how you want it? What would it look like? You know, you weren't like, well, if you really try hard and you kind of fail, how do you feel good about that? Not a super inspiring message, but
Oh.
that's the one I've been giving myself.
And that's a message for everybody watching this. It's like, and I've seen this play out not a few times, hundreds of times, that if you can dream it, if you can believe in it, if you desire it, you can have it. You truly can. But you got to know what it is for you. Because if you're just guessing and you haven't really taken the time to be with yourself and understand what that looks like, and and this exercise we go through when we serve rape, today, is like, I want you to go in. I want you to think about this clean slate. You got all the ingredients of the past. What is exactly that you want? And you bring these things forward. You bring them forward in your life today, in the present life, but you also then have the ability to perpetuate those into future generations, not only your direct lineage, but those that you're around.
And so I'm hoping there's some people that have been inspired by this conversation. And so if people were interested in the medicine path, and you had to say, if psychedelic journeying had a warning label, what would it say?
Well, here's a funny, we heard this, I think, down at Costa Rica. I thought it was fun. The warning label that, like, the churches should put a billboard out, and in front of every church it says, important if true. and and this, what I would say about psychedelics, it's true and important if you're willing to treat it with care. Yeah, it's true, it's there, it's within grasp, but again, it's not this quick fix. It's not a pill. We're in a society that we have no attention. Give me something that's going to fix me. I remember when Ginny and I were separated for the 3-year period of time, and we did some joint counseling sessions with Karosh, Ginny would ask, how much longer until she calls me Ronnie, until Ronnie is fixed? It's like, well, first of all, I'm not broken. and it's, it's not, it's just not this, it's just not a silver bullet. There's a lot of energy and effort that goes into it, but it's really worthwhile. And it's a path that you don't have to take my word or your word for it. Look at indigenous leaders, and they were running this world and had amazing life, and they lived in harmony with each other and with the planet.
So we've talked about this path and all of it. What are you working on now? What's the thing that you look at yourself and you say, I could maybe do this better, or I could improve in some way? Is there something that you're working on?
Yes. So, still support Carson. I'm still chairman of the board. And that's a really beautiful baby that, will continue to be part of our family for, I hope, many generations to come. Launched a business called Momentous. The moment is Momentous is our family office, and we are, today we're backing conscious leaders with world-changing ideas, and the stuff coming is so beautiful and so powerful, and we're at the epicenter of that. And then this OMIA, which is a conscious community. It's an activated network of conscious leaders that want to take the planet back, from the bottom up, from the inside out. Om. I made up the name on one of my walking meditations at Omani Ranch. We call it Omani Ranch now. Before it was called Krejci property. Om, the original sound of creation. Ya means life, light, God, depending upon the culture. Om Ya, which is very feminine. We're building a really beautiful statue called Omya, and she is the goddess of harmony, to harmonize humans with each other and nature. And that's where all my energy is going. I believe it's out there. It's possible to do. And the world and the the polarities that exist and the hate and the differences, I think are getting to such a point that people are willing to take a chance on something different. See, when, you know, as humans, we don't make a change unless the pain of staying the same is greater than the uncertainty of what a change could provide. And I think we're at that tipping point right now. And so I want to be one of the change makers that really facilitates and can usher in a period that we've not experienced in my lifetime on this planet.
Well, you are that right now.
Thank you.
You know, in my view. And it's interesting, you talked about the indigenous wisdom, and oming is obviously very old. And one thing that I do every day also is I stimulate my vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the longest nerve from your brain to your heart, lungs, and your gut. And it's an information transfer, and it's really kind of a gift of your intuition. 80% of the information that comes between it comes from here up into your brain.
Yeah.
And I stimulate it with a device and all that, but oming stimulates it.
Yeah.
And so they figured that out a long time ago. Yoga is a very powerful trauma healing thing. Nobody had studied, people just did it. There's so much wisdom out there. I mean, I certainly believe in science and testing things, but I don't think you want to stick around with if it's only scientifically proven, thousands of years of use probably indicates some good benefit of it. And we can, also look at that wisdom and not just look at science. Science is limited in some
Yes, it is. I mean, science is beautiful, right?
Absolutely.
We've proven a lot of things, but I agree. There's just some things that were, think of what we know today. I think about my grandmother who passed away in 1997, and she wouldn't even recognize the world we're in today and what we know and what we're capable of doing. And science is, it's leading, but in many ways it's lagging. We have to have all this concrete proof. And I used to be that person. Unless you can prove it 10 ways to Sunday, I wasn't going to believe in it. And now it's like, you know what, I'm going to sit with myself. I know it and I feel it. And this is where you have this total self-sovereignty of who we are and what's working. And some things you just have to experience for yourself, regardless of what science says. Sometimes science is not only they can prove something, but it's actually not true.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of the information that we have, I think about, science and Stanford and saying that opiates were safe. That was science, right? Where did that get us?
Right. So, as we kind of wrap things up here, if there's somebody out there that's watching this and they're in the darkest chapter of their life and they have no hope and they got a chance to run into you, what would you tell them?
I would tell them, don't give up. Take a chance on something new and find a reputable therapist that you can work with that works in these modalities and say, open up the tool bag and let me see if I can be the best version of myself. I can tell you, people that have come to the ranch, I didn't know this when they came, but they shared it with me later, that we've had people come here that this was their stop. And if it didn't work, they were planning on killing themselves the next week or the next month. And those people are thriving today. There is a better way. And it really starts with, though, being open to combining what we know with Eastern and Western medicine and trusting things that maybe aren't proven scientifically, but are working and very effective. And a lot of these things are now starting to be proved. Psychedelics, the study we're doing, we sponsoring, our church is sponsoring a VA study in Omaha with the veterans right now. There's many of these studies that are going on. The statistics are amazing on how you can mentally be healed and unleash this power within that's always been there. And you just got to have the right situation and the right people and the right process for you to really be all that you were meant to be.
So when I'm around you, you definitely engage my thinking mind, but what is the thing that draws me is how I feel around you. And so people who are watching this, if they, like, what do you hope they feel, not think, about your story?
I hope they feel hope.
Hope.
Hope for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hope for their children, their grandchildren, and the children that aren't born. I want them to feel hope, because I run into young people today. It's like, I'm not having kids. I'm not bringing any kids into this world. Well, that's bad. I mean, that's as a species, I do believe we want to perpetuate, our species for a lot longer than what we've been here. And so I hope it's a message. I hope people are finding hope in my message.
And so if there's people that are interested, I'm sure some people are going to watch this and be interested in kind of connecting with you in some way. What's the best way to get in touch?
We do this gathering here on the ranch. It's this year will be September 25th through the 29th. I'd say for the conscious curious, come. There's it's not, you're not doing psychedelics. You're here with a lot of great panels, a lot of great thinkers. There's amazing music, food, community, breath work and body work. And it's a great way to just like tip your toe in and go, I wonder what this is all about. And, we have a lot of conscious curious come, and it has transformed their life. So don't take my word for it. Take your own time and energy and start exploring a little bit and have an open mind. I mean, I think one of the things that's been lost in society today is, are you curious and are you doing your own thinking? Start with that, and then start making decisions for yourself.
Any websites or anything there, they'll figure it out.
They can go to omia.life, www.omia.life.
Okay.
And we're also on Instagram, and then heartlandgathering.com. Heartland, come to the Heartland to get the heart open.
Yeah, and I've just, obviously you guys can tell I'm very fond of Omani, and I would just say if anybody is even slightly curious, if there's a little whisper that says, this might be good for me, that's your intuition telling you should do it, and don't over research it, and just, click the button and come.
Yeah.
You'll be glad you did. And thank you so much for
Thank
your
you for
time.
having me. This has been awesome,
This
Steve.
has been a great conversation, and I feel really blessed to be in your world. I love you.
I love you.